Super Bowl is coming and Vegas is at it again, charging outrageous landing fees at all of their airports for the big event. So where is the FAA as the Clark County Department of Aviation seemingly violates FAA rules that require them to charge fair and reasonable prices for aeronautical services? And is the Clark County Department of Aviation anti-general aviation? I found some alarming documentation that you'll definitely want to see. In this video, we'll look at the exorbitant landing fees for the upcoming Super Bowl and dive into the actual aircraft operation numbers for the past Formula One event when they charged the same fees to see if it was actually busy. And I'll tell you about how I was contacted by a senator's office to discuss the latest developments on a congressional bill that can help stop these outrageous fees and give GA pilots fair access to their own airports. You'll learn what we can do to help stop what feels like the privatization of our public airports. Okay, here's a quick recap. All three Vegas area airports started charging very high landing fees during special events like the opening of the Sphere and the Formula One race. For the Formula One last November, they were charging $3,000 per landing, even for drop and goes. That is, until the FAA saw my video and had a call with the Clark County Department of Aviation. The CCDOA reduced the fee for small planes to $750, which by most pilots' opinions is still outrageous for drop and goes or parking that requires no services. And it's not just our opinions, it's against FAA rules since these are publicly funded federal grant accepting airports. We'll get to that in a bit, but first, unless you live under a rock, you know the Super Bowl is coming to Vegas in a few days. And the CCDOA is at it again, charging the same fees they did for Formula One. In the past, the CCDOA has said they need to charge the high fees to accommodate the number of aircraft coming in. So let's take a look at the volume of airport traffic during Formula One and what Clark County says it costs to support them. In a previous video, I used FAA's OpsNet system to look at traffic during the opening of the Sphere. They charged a $500 landing fee during that event, but we found out from the data that the special event window wasn't even in the top 10 busiest time periods for North Las Vegas or Henderson airports. And it really looks like that special event fee wasn't justified and in fact might have even kept people away. If I were a Vegas business, I certainly wouldn't be happy about that. So how about Formula One? Was it actually busy? Well, looking at the data for Formula One for North Las Vegas and Henderson, we can see at first glance, there was indeed quite an increase in airport operations for that time period. I compared the Formula One week against the same Tuesday through Monday week in November of the previous year. For North Vegas, over the Formula One week, there were 459 more itinerant air taxi operations than the previous year. An itinerant aircraft is one that arrives from out of the area or departs the area after takeoff. Keep in mind an aircraft operation is either an arrival or departure. We can assume that most of the itinerant aircraft that arrived also departed, so we can half the aircraft operations number to obtain the actual number of aircraft. We can infer that there were about 230 more aircraft than the previous year over this 6-day period. That's about a 250% increase. You can see that itinerant GA was down by 200 operations, or about 15%. Local civil operations, essentially planes in the traffic pattern, like flight training, were about the same, and overall total airport operations were up about 8%. So at first glance at North Vegas, it looks like it was really busy with air taxi operations, which are typically jets. But I searched the data for the previous couple years, didn't have to look far back to find a similar 6-day Tuesday to Monday period that was equally busy. Here's the comparison for Formula One week to a 6-day period starting June 27th, just 5 months earlier. F1 week had only 6 more itinerant air taxi operations over the 6 days, 113 fewer itinerant GA operations, and 123 fewer local civil operations than this June week. Overall, total operations for F1 week at VGT were down 6% from that week in June 2023. Somehow, the airport managed during that time with no crazy landing fees. Henderson Airport was even busier than North Vegas. I again compared the aircraft ops to the same week from the previous year. Itinerant air taxi operations were up over 400%, while itinerant GA saw 300 fewer operations, about a 25% reduction. Local civil ops were completely decimated by the landing fees, with only 4 of these operations over the 6-day period. No one was flying the traffic pattern at Henderson Airport that week. They may have even forbid local operations. If you're a local Henderson pilot, please comment below and let me know. In a city known for special events, this is an ominous warning sign for local aircraft. How many more weeks throughout the year will have steep fees like this and prevent local pilots from using their own airport at Henderson? Looking at the increased volume, especially for Henderson, it would seem like additional resources would be required to accommodate the high volume of aircraft. things like additional fuel trucks, tugs, and line service personnel, it would make perfect sense to charge some kind of additional fee if the increased fuel sales couldn't cover the necessary expenses. The FAA's Airport Compliance Manual explains that an airport may charge fees that exceed total airport costs, but that airports should not use their market power to create revenue surpluses that exceed the amounts to be used for airport system purposes. We already know from the CCDOA's financial reports that the department runs a decent surplus before they even started with these huge landing fees. So the question is, how much money did they take in from the Formula One fees, and how much did it actually cost to run the operation to handle all those aircraft? And what do the FAA rules allow for airports to charge? We're going to answer those questions, but first, a quick word from our sponsor, who along with our awesome Patreon members, make this content possible. If $750,000 and $3,000 fees are too high for you, and you're having trouble getting to Vegas, thanks to the sponsor of this video, Golden Nugget Online Casino, now the Vegas experience can come to you. Golden Nugget now has an online casino app where you can play all your favorite casino games right on your phone. I've partnered with Golden Nugget on this video to let you guys know about a special deal they have going on right now. All new customers who sign up using promo code MONKEY and make a minimum $5 deposit will get that deposit matched dollar for dollar up to $1,000 in bonus funds. With a variety of slot games for you to choose from, like Cleopatra and Fortune Coin, and an assortment of Golden Nugget exclusives, there's so many ways to have that Vegas-style fun. Don't forget, Golden Nugget is matching all new customer deposits dollar for dollar up to $1,000 with bonus funds when they sign up with promo code MONKEY. Head over to the Golden Nugget Casino app right now and sign up to bring on that Vegas experience just without the airplane landing fees. This part of the video is brought to you by Golden Nugget. I managed to get some information about what the CCDOA says it costs to support the operations at North Vegas and Henderson during F1. They claim they spent $652,000 on equipment, things like power cards, lavatories, mobile dishwashing for caterers, extra fuel trucks, cell towers, new buried cell cable, a 20,000-gallon temporary Jet A tank, and coolers and freezers for caterers. And another $343,000 on personnel, extra staffing, per diem, overtime, and hiring an outside airboss company to help manage the ramp traffic. So the total spend, according to the CCDOA, was $995,000 to support this event. Receipts from all fee levels was $1.17 million, so they profited $175,000. But apparently this reporting doesn't include fuel sales. During regular non-special event times, we know that the CCDOA runs a revenue surplus charging only $20 parking fees. Fuel sales are a part of that revenue and help offset the cost of running the airport and keeping it financially sustainable. All these additional air taxi jets that came in during F1 would definitely need fuel, a lot of fuel since they had to bring on extra trucks and tanks to support them. Not counting the scaled up revenue from fuel against the expense of the scaled up operation seems really strange to me. Is the CCDOA anti-non-commercial general aviation? From their actions, it seems to me like they're doing their best to make air taxi jets their focus. You don't have to take my word for that. We can just have a look at the North Las Vegas Airport Master Plan. The master plan includes an analysis of the airport's strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Under weaknesses, it notes that diverse aircraft types like piston-powered aircraft can compound airspace congestion and reduce efficiency. And under threats, it says that these diverse aircraft types can contribute to delays and reduce capacity. It's pretty clear through their language and actions that they desperately want to cater to and prioritize business jets, despite being a public utility for all of general aviation to use. They've even branded the county-owned FBOs with a for-profit company that boasts about providing high-end service to jets. The pesky non-commercial airplanes will cause problems during busy special events, so their solution is to jack up the fees to keep them away. While commercial ops can pass on the fees to their customers, non-commercial GA pilots get priced out. And the data shows that their strategy is working, with a big reduction in piston aircraft during these special events. We can plainly see that their fees unfairly discriminate against non-commercial general aviation. If they didn't, we would expect to see a uniform increase in airport operations across all aircraft types during these events. But we see just the opposite. Total operations are up, commercial air taxi operations are way up, but non-commercial operations are way down. Their landing fees continue to break FAA rules by charging unreasonable fees and discriminating against non-commercial aviation. And all during special events, precisely the time when private pilots want to exercise the privilege that they've earned by obtaining their certificate. Even my daughter said, "Isn't the reason you got your pilot license so we could fly to fun events like that?" And it's not just Vegas, this is starting to happen all across the country. Many of our public airports are starting to be run like for-profit private corporations. They're hosting private FBOs that monopolize the parking area and charge large fees for services non-commercial pilots don't want or need. While most FBOs are reasonable and we're happy to pay nominal fees to keep the airport sustainable, there are many that charge large fees just to walk through their building to the exit. FAA policy already states that all aeronautical users are entitled to airport access on fair and reasonable terms without unjust discrimination. But it's clear that practices like the one going on in Vegas squeeze non-commercial GA pilots out of their own airports and break FAA rules. So where is the FAA in all this? They did talk to Clark County about reducing their fees for small planes, but hopefully they'll see this data showing how the current fees still unfairly discriminate against non-commercial operations. They must hold the CCDOA to account until we see a uniform increase in operations during special events, and not the exact opposite, which is currently happening. AOPA is on the front lines of this fight to keep our airports accessible and reasonable as public utilities for all GA pilots. They've been working with the government to advocate for GA pilots. So, is there hope for general aviation? Are we going to be pushed out of our own airports? And what can we do about it? Well, I recently received an email from Senator Ted Budd's office. He's working to pass the General Aviation Airport Access Act and add it to the next FAA reauthorization bill. The bill requires every airport that receives federal dollars to set aside part of their ramp for transient pilots. This can either be a new parking area or on the existing ramp. It means we don't have to use and pay for the private FBOs if we're not going to use their services. Under the bill, airports are still allowed to charge a fair and reasonable fee that must be posted on the airport's website. The bill would be a key part in giving the FAA a clear law that they must enforce. So, what can we do? First, contact the senators on the Senate Commerce Committee and ask them to take action on passing the GA Airport Access Act. Follow this QR code or link in the description. I've made it easy for you to do it. Second, if you've been affected by the Vegas landing fees, please file an informal Part 13 complaint against the CCDOA. Again, follow the QR code for details. And support this channel on Patreon if you like what we're doing. It really allows us to dedicate the time and resources required to create this content. Share with friends to get the word out so we can work together to keep our public airports accessible to GA.